Hello, and thank you for joining me, and thank you for listening and giving your time. I really appreciate you. Today, what I'd like to talk about is actually, this recording is titled "When Your Light Agitates People." This happens. You may have noticed it. You may have had experiences. You may have had experiences and not known what it was that you were experiencing. So I'll give you an example. Many times when we're dealing with and communicating with people, we have these experiences that leave us thinking and feeling like, what happened? What did I say? Maybe we just had a simple conversation with someone, or what we thought was a simple conversation, and it just so went to the left. The person got very agitated, or maybe the person responded in a way we weren't expecting, and we think to ourselves, well, they responded as though they thought by what I said I meant this, or like they thought I was getting at this when I wasn't, or they thought I had, or they responded in a way where they thought that I had bad intentions because of what I said. Oh, I'll give you an example. Sometimes what happens is, sometimes you can ask a person just a simple and innocent question, and they come back at you in a very defensive way, as though they're like in this position where they're trying to not only answer the question, but at the same time defend what they're saying, as though they thought that you're asking the question insinuated something. Maybe you were getting at something specific. Maybe your question was you beating around the bush to say something, or to say you feel like it's this, but instead of saying, oh, I think it's this, you asked a question. You asked them an innocent question like, well, what do you think about such and such? And they just came back at you maybe so harshly, in a defensive position, as though you pointed the finger and targeted them in some way, when that's not at all what happened. And it can leave you wondering what just happened. I said this, and I know it was just a simple question. I asked a question because maybe I really wanted to know the answer. Or sometimes we ask questions not just because we don't know the answer. Sometimes we ask questions and we already kind of know the answer. But maybe we have this person that we're speaking with, we have a lot of respect for them. Maybe we know how smart they are. Maybe we know what a great grasp and understanding they have of certain subjects, certain topics. And so we ask questions because we would just simply love to hear how their answer, how they would respond. So really, we're kind of taken aback because we kind of feel like what I did in asking that question, maybe I feel like it should have been more flattering, because I asked them that question because of who they were, because I really felt with their knowledge and understanding, wow, I can only imagine their answering this question is probably like so awesome compared to maybe how I would answer it. And that's true. Many times we do know the answer, but we ask it anyway because we would love to hear that particular person's answer to it, the way they may put it, how they may explain it, examples they may use. And we don't have any bad intentions in asking the question we're asking. But for some reason, the person doesn't just answer the question, they come back at you in such a defensive way that leaves us going, okay, what just happened? What did I do? What did I say that was wrong? Was my tone of voice screwed up or something? Not only can it leave you in that place where you're questioning like that and you're wondering what happened, but often it can leave you feeling very hurt. Definitely feeling very hurt, as though the response that you ended up getting, how they came back at you, like you didn't deserve that because you didn't do anything wrong. You just maybe answered a question, made a statement, um, wasn't meaning any harm. So it can leave you feeling very hurt. Well, unfortunately for the person that does that, unfortunately, even though they may have misunderstood, they may have taken what you said wrong, but it may have been all a misunderstanding. They may not have intended to hurt your feelings. However, as you know, and as I've said before, even if you don't intend to hurt somebody's feelings, but you do, there's karma associated with that. So when it comes to karma, you're not meaning to hurt anybody's feelings, or you're having a good intention. You're not meaning bad. Unfortunately, that doesn't get you out of karma. So there is still that. Well, the reason why I said that this talk was going to be about your light and how your light affects people, and how your light can sometimes appear to affect people in a negative way. Now, some people might say, well, that can't be right. That can't be true. Sounds like a contradiction. I know it does. On the path to enlightenment, the truth is conflicting. So many things on the path to enlightenment can be true. And with our human mind, often we hear ourselves going, well, if this is true, this can't be true. And if this is true, that can't also be true. But on the path to enlightenment, you will find the truth is very conflicting. So many things can be true that seem to be conflicting. Try not to worry about that. Just know that that is normal. But the thing about the light that you hold as you're working on yourself and you're raising your vibrations, which means that you are increasing the amount of light that you can hold at one time. And sometimes you're holding so much light that is basically just oozing out of you. And what I mean by that is you're able to hold so much light. You've raised your vibrations, which means you're able to hold more light at one time. But at the same time, there are some times when you're more light is flowing into you than you can actually hold. And there is that overflowing of light. Okay, where does that excess go? Well, just to mention one thing, I can tell you where the excess sometimes go. Okay, raise your hands if you have moments when you're just blowing light bulbs out left and right, where you walk by the TV in your living room and it goes all staticky, or a radio, or you notice you go to turn the knob on the radio in your car, and as soon as your hand goes near it, it gets all staticky. It's that overflowing and that excess light that is coming out of you. You could almost say that it needs somewhere to go. Now, of course, that's a simple solution. If you keep blowing light bulbs every time you flip a light switch, or every time you get even slightly agitated, all of a sudden another light blows, and sometimes in a very impactful way. I've had quite a few light bulbs blow on me when I've been feeling very agitated and very full at the same time. Gone to flip that light switch and that light bulb just blow in such a dramatic way. Or had those days when it seems like every time I went to touch that light switch, I was giving myself just such a huge shock. And look, I have tile in my house. So I know you may be thinking, oh, well, you're probably walking along and because your feet on the carpet. No, there's tile in my house. But, that energy, that excess energy, has to have some place to go. So of course you could purposely flow out some energy, or if you're you know healing people, you'll get a chance to flow out some of that excess energy. But let's talk about how that light and its brightness and its amazing impactfulness, how that affects people. People with lower vibrations than you, much lower, when you come around them, sometimes in your presence, they seem to be overly agitated. I remember I so many times affected my parents that way. Sometimes it would be just, going over to my parents' house. Sometimes it would be just my mother I would affect that way. Sometimes it would be both my mother and father. Sometimes it would be everyone that was in the house. I just seemed to, the minute I walked in the door, I could feel it. I could feel the energy in the house change as I felt their, almost like I was feeling their energy change, their mood change. Feeling them go from an okay place to an overly agitated place. Often what happens, you have to understand that when you're dealing with people that have maybe much lower vibrations than you, this is likened to standing at a distance away from each other and trying to communicate with each other. If you're standing within a couple of feet of me, you can hear me very clearly. You can understand what I say very clearly. However, possibly, if you're standing across the street from me, it may be a lot harder for you to hear me. If you're standing a mile away from me, we're not going to have a very good conversation standing a mile apart. As you work on yourself and you raise your vibrations, your light intensifies. It's not only expanding, but it's intensifying, and those are two different things. Expansion of your light is one thing. Intensification of your light, that's something else. So you're not only expanding, you're intensifying as well. So that means it's not just that you're holding more light. It's not only more light, but it's becoming more and more powerful as it intensifies. And it does affect people, sometimes in a positive way. And I'm sure you've had experiences where you've affected somebody in a positive way. Maybe someone just being around you and speaking with you about a problem they have for just a few minutes, they say, that's funny. I'm realizing I'm feeling much better now after just talking to you for a few minutes about it. So we've all experienced the positive ways our light can affect people. But let's just talk about some of the negative ways that it can affect people, because it can. You may notice just trying to have a simple conversation with someone. Maybe they're responding harshly to you. Maybe you almost feel like you're saying black, they're hearing white. You're saying up, they're hearing down. You're saying things, and the understanding, what they hear and the understanding they're getting from what you're saying is completely opposite of what is coming out of your mouth. And you're wondering, well, what's going on? I said this, but they're acting as though they took it a totally different way. They took it, maybe the negative aspect of what you meant, because there's many things that you can say and it can be taken different ways by people. And let's just say, for anything you say, there's a positive aspect of it and there's a negative aspect of it. And maybe, you said something with good intentions and you were thinking you wanted them to, what you wanted them to get from it was a positive aspect of it. But maybe what you're realizing happened is it seems like what they picked up on was some negative aspect of it. You said the positive and they heard negative. Sorry to tell you this, but there's really not much that you can do. Except to be aware of what's going on so that you don't accidentally blow something out of proportion or take it much further in a negative way than it needs to be taken. Because sometimes when these things happen, sometimes our mouth gets us into trouble. Sometimes we try to correct it. We try to fix it. We try to point out to the person, hey, I didn't deserve that response you just gave me or that reaction you just had, and you hurt my feelings. And by trying to explain yourself, sometimes you can just make the situation worse. Sometimes all that is needed is for you to understand what is going on and to be satisfied with just understanding what is going on, what is happening. When I talk about, and I've talked about this many times, the sacrifices you make when you're working towards, when you're on a path to enlightenment and you're working on advancement, there are sacrifices that you will make. We could call those sacrifices as simple as you very often having to take the higher road. You could think of it that way, is that many times you find yourself having to be the one that takes the higher road, having to be the bigger person. And sometimes that will leave you just almost feeling dissatisfied, feeling like you were kicked while you were down and there was no one to come to your aid to say, hey, she didn't deserve that. Stop treating her that way. Definitely when you're on the path to enlightenment, you spend a lot of time feeling like you're in a large banquet ballroom with thousands of people, and 999 of them are on one side of the room all together, and you alone are by yourself on the other side of the room. Often this path you're on can make you feel that way, that you spend so much of the time on the opposite side of the room, standing all alone by yourself. Almost like that kind of odd person out feeling. I'm not going to tell you that advancing and getting to where you're going, that goal you have, that it's all going to be roses and sunshine, and because it's not. And it's the duality of it. For up there's down, for good there's bad. There is that duality, but there's also that balance that you're trying to find. And sometimes balancing it means that you have to take the understanding you have and that be enough. It be enough for you to know what's going on. You'll never be able to explain to a person that's not on the same path you're on what's going on and what happened. Although some people do try, they insist on trying. They're just like, well, hey, let me share some of the things with you that I'm learning and that I'm experiencing on my path so you'll know what's going on so that maybe you won't hurt my feelings again. No, don't do that. You may think it'll give you some satisfaction, but probably the only thing that'll happen by it is that you'll end up making the other person feel bad, because when they end up realizing from you that you were hurt by them, they're going to feel bad. Though they're definitely going to feel bad. And unfortunately, that's not going to gain you anything. Two people feeling bad is no better than one person feeling bad. So you don't want to do that. If they don't realize what they've done to you, that they've hurt you, that they've left you feeling bad, just let it go. Maybe one day down the road, they'll kind of understand what you now understand. And at that time, hey, they'll work out their karma. But the light can be very agitating. Let me give you another example of what the light can do. And some of you may have experienced this. As you start to advance and you're doing very well, and your light is really intensifying, and you're really holding a lot of light, and you're doing really good as far as tenacity to continue working, doing your spiritual work diligently. Sometimes you'll go places and you'll run into people, and what stares back at you from these people is not them. There will be instances where you'll go to cross somebody's path. Maybe you're going in a door and they're coming out. And when they look you in the eye, when they look you in the face, just all of a sudden, there's a change that comes over their face. I remember one time, and this has happened to me many, many times, but I remember this one time, this lady was coming out of the door and I was going in, and her face just suddenly changed. An almost grimace came over her face. Her mouth opened, but not into a smile. It opened into what looked like a grimace and a baring of teeth. And I swear, it made me like I felt like jumping back for a second. And in my mind, I'm thinking, whoa, what the heck was that? And I talked to a friend of mine about it that has been for so many years, probably like 20 years, working with Buddhist master teachers. And I was very surprised that he actually knew what I was talking about. And that this was something that, that had been discussed with him from his Buddhist teachers. And he was explaining to me, it's like there are some people who, at the low vibration they're residing at, they have attachments. They have a lot of darkness within them. Yeah, these are just like your everyday people. Such as the people who I deal with in my son's YMCA nutrition healthy group that I go to every week. There are times when many of the people respond in a way where it's just like it's clear we're not on the same page. It's clear that, it's like we're yin and yanging it, but not in a balancing way, in an unbalanced way. I've gotten to the point where I almost don't want to participate. I almost don't want to speak up and contribute. The only reason why I have been is because, of my son, for him. But I am almost at the point where I'm ready to throw in the towel, and I don't do this anymore because I can't say the simplest things without them being taken the wrong way. It doesn't matter what I say, it's taken the wrong way. It doesn't matter what I say, I'm misunderstood. And although I know what's going on, imagine dealing with something like that on an once a week ongoing basis for how long has it been now? I think we started last August. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, going on 8 months now. It's going on 8 months that I've been dealing with this from the people in this group, and it's gotten to the point where I'm almost like, oh my goodness, I am in hell. This is horrendous. But I'm trying to keep a good attitude about it, and that's the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it, is because I deal with this a lot, so I figured maybe I could be helpful to you. Yeah, there are going to be times when you're just like, you could be so frustrated, or your feelings could be so hurt, but you really got to hang in there. You have to try to have a good sense of humor about it. Allow yourself to feel however you feel about it. Talk to the angels, your higher self, the ascended masters, God about it as much as you need to, and for as long as you need to, until you finally feel like you've kind of resolved it within yourself. But like I was saying, there's darkness in some people, and then some people are just at a lower vibration than you. the things that are dark within some people will respond negatively to your light. Attachments people have will cause them to respond negatively or in inappropriate ways to you. Yeah, so it's like in one way you want to think, yeah, well, that's not their fault. That's something they're suffering. And it's true. It is. Although it's something that at any time they can free themselves of. It's maybe not their time yet. So, what are you supposed to do? Have the understanding about what is going on. Because then that way, you don't have to take it personal. And you can also take it in a way that this is a good sign. You could say to yourself, you know what? This is a sign that I am doing well. This is a sign that I'm successful. I'm being successful at raising my vibrations. I'm being successful at intensifying the light that I'm holding. So you can see this in a positive way for yourself. It's not all negative. This is, in a way, a good sign for you. So that's just, I wanted to share that with you in case you've experienced these things. Maybe you can remember to remind yourself as you're dealing with people that are responding to you and maybe it's throwing you off. Maybe you can remind yourself of some of the things that I've talked about so that you don't have to walk away feeling so hurt, taking it personal and feeling like you've been like personally attacked, so that it will almost let you off the hook from having to feel so bad. It's going to happen. If you haven't experienced it that much, that's great. But if you continue tenaciously working on your spiritual advancement, working towards enlightenment, eventually you are going to experience some of this. And so it's nice to kind of be prepared for it and to kind of know how to deal with it. So I hope that's been helpful. Feel free to make comments if you want to comment and you want to share the experiences you've had, how you dealt with it, whether you feel like you dealt with it the right way or the wrong way. Or even if you just want to share your experience and say, okay, well, I dealt with it this way, but how would you have suggested I have dealt with it? If you just want to get an idea of what I may suggest ways you should have dealt with it, feel free. I mean, I don't mind throwing that out there. But feel free to comment. I thank you, and if you're looking for me, you can find me at sherryspeaks.com. And you can find lots of wonderful things there. There's a blog. There's many Reiki attunements, which are only, many of them are free because they have the attunement videos. But if you want a personal attunement done by me, my strength happens to be telekinesis. So my attunements tend to be very powerful. That is one of the skills that I have. I flow energy very powerfully. And if you want a personal attunement by me, they're only $2.50 each. The manuals are free to download. And I have some really nice, beautiful, custom-made attunement certificates. And they're only $1.25 each, and all you do is you give me your name, the date, the master's name you want on it, if other than me. So there's a lot of cool things at sherryspeaks.com. Feel free to go there and check it out. I'm so happy that you gave me and my higher self the time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Namaste.